She Quest Podcast is the home of heart-opening dialogues, stories, and experiences for self-identified women on a She Quest. Season 5 is now bilingual as I welcome co-host Nadia Bonenfant. Hey Nadia!
Hey Estelle, delighted to be part of She Quest Podcast. Forward movement to live aware, bold, and whole. Let's do this.
Woohoo! Hi, She Quest. Welcome to She Quest Podcast with guest. My name is Estelle Thompson, and I'm so enthralled that you're here. I've been wanting to have this beautiful, you can't see her right now, but you should see her. Power, she's fixing herself. I love it. Powerhouse of a woman for so long on the show. So I want to introduce her to you. Dr. Rohini Bannerjee, who was born and raised in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. She's the daughter of immigrants from northern India, is an associate professor of French and Francophone studies in the Department of Modern Language and Classic, and graduate coordinator of the International Development Studies program, and a faculty member in the Asian Studies, Graduate Women and Gender Studies, Intercultural Studies, and Peace and Conflict Studies program at St. Mary's University in Halifax. When not teaching or writing her own work, Rohini serves as president of the St. Mary's University Faculty Union. And as a mom of 3 boys, Rohini self-identifies as a woman scholar of color. And on a personal note, Rohini took my parent and baby yoga class a long time ago. I think it was 8 years ago, 8 or 7 years ago. And it's always such a pleasure to connect with her and read her discourses on diversity and watch her boys grow on social media. Rohini, hi.
Hi, salut Estelle. It's just a pleasure to be in your space again.
And it's a courageous space, and it's a conversation that I've been wanting to have for so long. We've touched on it here and there, but I think you're here. I just can't wait for everyone to hear what you have to say. At She Quest here, we always start with the same first question. It's a staple question, and it's what makes you feel alive today?
What a beautiful question. And being alive is a gift, as we know. We don't always have a choice in the chagrin or the sadness that we may experience, or in the happiness and joys that we experience. We don't have a lot of choice in that. But how we approach the joys and pains of our lives, that we have a choice in. And so what makes me alive is the value of choice. And that's what drives my thirst for feminism, for equality, égalité, all of that is because I have a choice. And so what makes me alive is that I get to choose how I respond to pain, to sadness, to joy, to the mundane, the everyday, to extraordinary moments like this. So I get a choice, and that's what makes me alive.
And that choice is really based in awareness, I feel, right? You can't make a choice if you're not aware.
Yeah, and that's a growth process. I hit 45 last month. And I feel like I am the most, and we all say this, many women will say this in their mid 40s as they approach into their 50s, that as we age, we know ourselves a bit better. We feel our joints in a little different way. We understand that our mind is the strongest organ in our entire body. But we do need to reconnect with the spiritual and whatever that might be for everyone. And for me, being self-aware of my needs, when we're a mom, when we are an educator, somebody who wants to nurture and care and grow with others, we often forget about ourselves. It's not just about skincare. It's not just about bubble bath. It's not just about having a favorite book, but it's really about knowing when you're not doing well and vocalizing it, or in some way sending it out into the universe and saying, universe, guess what? Rohini, who seems like she's on point all the time is struggling right now. And that awareness does come with age. It comes with experience. It comes with vulnerability. It comes with the choice to sit down and say, I need help. And that's been a really recent discovery for myself. I've been, I know that many people think that mental health, mental awareness of oneself or one's space in the world, if you're a professional, you're fine. You've got the salary, you've got a healthy family, you're fine. Like, what else do you need? And we forget that beyond all of the letters after my name or where I might be living or how I approach life, I'm still a human being and I still have a spirit and I need that to be nourished. And so awareness, self-awareness of my own needs and what I need to be the best version of myself every day, that's been very empowering.
Yeah, it's been recent for me too, like really, I think since the start of the whole pandemic, where like every day I ask myself, like, what do I need today? Like, how simple and how freaking like freeing to, have, if it's that one question that I ask and it's like what, and I give myself what I need. Actually, it's one thing to ask yourself and then it's one thing to like
Actually do it. Yeah. But I think it's also asking yourself. So we have a routine, we have people in our lives that we care for, we have responsibilities, but we also have agency and we have autonomy. And we meaning those who perhaps identify as women, from those who come from societies or cultural backgrounds where women don't come first, to ask yourself what you need is a form of resistance. And for me, it's actually resisting oppression in different ways. I told you on the offset this morning when you were asking about pronouncing my name, and I openly told you, I actually have been mispronouncing my name incorrectly, and that is a form of decolonization. And part of decolonization means addressing myself correctly, my own name correctly, my own needs correctly. And it feels weird. It feels strange. It feels strange to actually say to myself, I might need to go see a therapist. No, you can't. You're a professional. You don't need help from an outside body. Actually, I do. And it's incredibly empowering when I find other colleagues who are maybe in my field or may not be, who'll say to me, I've been going to a therapist for 3 years. What? You also have needs too, and you're addressing them? How empowering. And then ironically, I'm talking to junior faculty, junior colleagues, sometimes racialized, sometimes not. And I'm saying to them, guess what? If I had gone to therapy 10 years ago, I would have been probably the premier of Nova Scotia by now. And I say this to myself constantly. And I think it's a good thing that I didn't get therapy 10 years ago, because Rankin would not have a job right now. So I think about that and I reroute some of the regrets that we supposedly have in our lives and on our journey. And I say to myself, well, I'm ready now. I'm in therapy now. This is amazing. I have the option, the choice to think about myself. And I'm very open with my own children about it, about what my needs are. And they, I hope, see modeling behavior of what a healthy lifestyle really is about.
And I got full body shiver about, just mentioning how like you had to look at your own name, and it struck me because, and you're like, that didn't feel good. Like at first I was like, and one exercise I do, Rohini, not in yoga classes, but in my retreats, one of the first thing is finding out the meaning of your name. And a lot, it's very cathartic. Some of us don't even know the meaning of our name and how like, and, I can only speak to my experience, but I know how the meaning of my name really has supported almost my mission, my calling. And so I'm curious now, do you know the meaning of your name?
I do. And I will say that's such an interesting point you've made. So I use this as part of my icebreaker for students on my first day of class. So I'm like, okay, this class, here's the course outline. These are my, this is my rubric. These are my expectations. Let's talk about me. And I self-identify in the beginning of class. I tell them where I'm from, that like I'm the first kid in my house to ever get a graduate degree. I'm a kid of immigrants. I tell them everything about them, and sort of they're a little bit like overloaded. Like, we just want to come to the class. We don't want to know about you. But I find that it really creates, I want to have a relationship with my students that's, cerebral, that's spiritual, that connects, because, hey, they're coming to St. Mary's. They've decided to come to my class. They could have taken another class. I feel like it's an opportunity for me to connect. So I do that on the first day. So I self-identify as a learned speaker of French. I didn't leave my mother's body speaking French. I continuously am a student of the language and what I do. And then on top of that, I give a little, one of the icebreaker questions is, I play this beautiful video of Ian Hanuman Singh, the great CBC reporter, who's beautiful on the eyes to look and watch speak. And he does this really great interview where he talked about how he changed his name to impress a girl. And he has this deep, gorgeous radio voice, but he's Hanuman Singh, and that's his name. And he changed his name because he thought if he had a more white passing name, the white girls would want to be with him. And he's racialized. He's of South Asian heritage. And then he realized it wasn't about the name; it was about his voice and his intellect and his beauty. That why women were interested in him. And so I use that as an ice-breaking video, and I tell students, hey, guess what? I'm still figuring out my name, and let's figure out what everybody else's name is about. And so we do have an icebreaker name game that we do where we discover each other's names. And for somebody who comes outside of the Eurocentric circle and in a dominantly white population, often I'm asked, what's your name mean? And no one goes and asks Samantha what Samantha's name might mean, because there's an assumption that there is a meaning to it, but it's not important in the sense that it doesn't help identify her. But because racialized people are often adding more identifiers to their package, so they need to have more information and more data out there so that the dominant population can understand them, racialized people often have a meaning to their name, or at least they have to out themselves more often than perhaps white population. And it's really been fascinating to see, because I have been in social situations where my name is Rohini and people will say, oh, that's a pretty name. What does it mean? And I've got a Catherine and a Jennifer and a Heather beside me. No one's asking them whether their name is pretty or whether their name has a meaning. And that always fascinates me. And so I'll reroute the question and I'll say, if you're going to ask me, you got to ask my friends what their name means as well. And that then suddenly reminds the person who's asking me the question that you decided that my name is outside of white norms, and thus it means a meaning. So that's my sort of rerouted story answer to your question. Rohini actually is, I believe, was one of the lovers and or wives of a Hindu god. I can't remember which one. I'm actually not Hindu, so I don't actually know all of the mythology. It also is a star, which I think might work with Estelle, but I'm not sure. And thirdly, literally means one who climbs the ladder of success. And Bannerjee is a Bengali name, originally would be Bandyopadhyay, would be the actual name, and Bannerjee means teacher. So I feel like that works out. The Kismet or the universe did me well.
I would agree. And I love this discourse. And I mean, in my groups, like, yeah, the Samanthas and the Jennifers and to like, they've never asked what their name means. And it's very cathartic for them actually to add that meaning to, and sometimes there's like a big, like, I'd say almost like an exile, like, oh, something is making sense. Like there's a piece of the puzzle that that comes.
And that's being inclusive, right? So that's a way of being inclusive. And
Yeah.
when we talk about inclusivity, it's not just about including the one that may have not been included prior to that scene. So it's about reminding the person asking that question. If you're asking my identity, my ethnicity, my postal code, why I speak French, why I don't speak with an accent when I speak English, then you need to ask these friends over here, the ones with the freckles and the red hair. Why are you not asking them that question? Why are you not asking them where they're from? And so that's inclusivity. And what that does is it reminds the person asking the question that, you know what, you really decided to target one person, and you're assuming that these other are part of the white orbit, the orbit upon which we all, surround ourselves. And that's unfortunate. And, I remember speeding very, very high speeds in, I think it was North Carolina, South Carolina. I was very young. I was with a friend. We had gone to a conference. I was a doctoral student at the time. And she's a beautiful blonde, blue-eyed, looks like Scarlett Johansson. And there's me, and she's speeding, and we get this beautiful, very handsome state trooper who stops us, with his hat and everything. And he tells us that we're speeding, and we put on our perfect, Canadian accent to make sure that he knows that we're not from North America, South Carolina. And as he's asking her for her driver's license, I have to reach out in the back to get it for her. And I thought about it for a second, because I thought, I'm reaching for the back. I'm in the southern United States. I perhaps am perceived to be Black, which is what most people thought I was. And I don't know what he's going to do, how he's going to react to me. And this was well before the discourse of the condition of Black Americans in general around police. I was even aware of it. Anyways, when he gave her the warning ticket, he chose, for data reasons, to choose her race for her, and he put white. And we drove off to the airport. And she looked at the ticket and she said, why does he think I'm white? And I said, well, you're a blonde. You present as fair skinned with blue eyes. The assumption is that you're white. And she said to me, why didn't he just ask me? And so it's very fascinating to hear that from a white person who feels that they are then placed into a box without any question. Most likely, if it had been me driving, I would have been asked, and maybe if I hadn't been, what would he have ticked off in the box? Would he have put Pacific Islander? Amazing. Would he have put Filipina? Amazing. I don't know what he would have chosen, but that would have been based on his intercultural competence, his worldview, his training. It's quite scary, actually, to think that one person decides what your ethnicity is, and without even asking. And that was a very interesting point for me, a moment for me, because I was experiencing assumptions in North Carolina and South Carolina. People were assuming that I was Black. People were assuming that I was from Dominican Republic. I mean, I was having fun with it. But my white friend was very offended by the fact that this man decided to just place her in a box without asking. And I looked at her and I said, that's what happens to many of us all the time. And it was an interesting experience. We had an engaging conversation. And even though we got stopped in the highway in the United States.
I think I love that conversation around it that you had, and this like safety you both had to have the conversation, and lately you're so easy to talk to, Rohini. I had my questions planned and now it's not, but I guess out of like, I just wish, and why I was craving so much to have this conversation with you, it's like, your friend, she was safe enough to talk to you about it. And sometimes I feel like we don't have a lot of space to feel safe about questioning social justice issues, or questioning like, wait, why is this? And I'm coming from somebody who, I don't know everything, and I'd love to know more. Do you know where I'm coming from? Like, I'm like, oh my God, those conversations are so needed to like debunk all of this, debunk why this cop didn't feel like he had to ask her, or why, and I feel a lot of us are just so afraid. I just had this conversation this week with my husband. Like, we're like, where can we ask questions? Like, and we, and even sometimes, I don't want to offend, but it's like, even in those social, like, I've taken so many social justice in terms of like the yoga part, and it's like, sometimes I'm so afraid to ask a question because I should know more. Or can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think, when I teach on African identity, part of my work that I do, because I work on the Indian Ocean. And so it's l'Île Maurice, it's Madagascar, it's that area. And that's all, there are no indigenous people there was the dodo, the bird, and that was it. Like, there were no humans on Maurice. And so when I meet Mauritian students, ethnically, they are very diverse. We have Creole, Africain, we have, Français, we have, and d'origine indienne. So we have the whole mix of people. And so it's very métissage and all of that. And someone like me who's born in Canada from Punjabi Northern Indian parents, who's not Mauritian, who's now teaching on Mauritian identity with her learned French accent. It's very interesting because I know, and I say that on the outset when I'm teaching the literature course, I say I do not have lived experience. I am not an expert, and so I will ask the Mauritian students who take my class, which is a great privilege to have them. And sometimes I'm a little bit scared. I'm scared when there's a Québécois in my class or a francophone from France or Belgium or Mali or Benin, because I'm like, oh no, they're gonna know that I'm a learned speaker. And that's okay. So I out myself right away. And that's what I tell my friends who don't know a lot or who are still learners. I'll say, you have to out yourself in the beginning. And you don't even have to say, I'm going to offend you, or I don't mean to offend you. Actually, just say, look, I'm Estelle. I'm a learner. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm a life student. I'm a student of yoga. I'm a student of life. And I want to know more. And what do I need to do to learn and write and understand and process and digest? And then use that information for better impact. It's fine to internalize and read all about X, Y, and Z, but how are you going to use that for better impact and purpose in your life? That's what's the key. And so Estelle is not just going to read about asanas and positions and breath. She's going to use that to change people's lives. And that's what the key is. And so when you ask questions with purpose, with intention, and an open heart, 99% of the time, you're going to get a good response. What's really important is to acknowledge is that those with the knowledge, may it be elders, may it be African Nova Scotians, may it be those descendants of enslavement or under oppression, they have been the keepers of that knowledge and are only very recently learning how to output that knowledge, and only very recently have had dominant cultures want to know more. And so this is all very new, and we don't know exactly how to do it. And what's important as well is to remember that it's very tiring and exhausting for those who carry that knowledge to be constantly educating. And I signed up for the gig. I have a job and I get to do that. And I find it's a very empowering moment. Well, sometimes I want to eat my hamburger at a pub and not be asked 5 questions, whether I'm Iranian, whether Iraqi, are you a Muslim? Did you get an arranged marriage? You know what? I just want to eat my hamburger, dude. Like, leave me alone. And that gets tiring. And are your kids mixed? Like, why do you have a nose pin? Why is your hair like that? Did you straighten it? Because is it a weave? Like, are you Black? I mean, it's incredible what people have the audacity to ask. And that's not with good intentions. That's not with the intention of knowing and understanding and connecting with that person. It's more because they are afraid, they don't know enough information, and they need to gather more data. I feel like we're like the Terminator, the Terminator when he used to scan the bodies before he would terminate them. I loved Arnold. Oh my goodness, Arnold. And so I think about that. And I think we're like the Terminator. We go around collecting data based on a one dimension. And so some of us, like Estelle, want to know more. And how do we do that, right? So first of all, this is one of the best ways to do it. You're creating a 360 experience. It might be only audio, but you're getting breadth and you're getting depth and you're getting really wholesome conversations in this. So this is a great aspect of doing it, but not everybody can do a podcast. Sometimes people are just at a pub and they want to talk to somebody and they don't know how to approach it. And I think it's like when we have lines when we're trying to date somebody or trying to get people's attention. We have these people who have bad lines, like they have terrible lines and they don't work, but sometimes they do. And sometimes they do because we're used to that. And so sometimes we're used to just people having bad approaches. And we make excuses for bad behavior. Well, I mean, she's a good white woman. She does yoga. Like, she seems like she's a worldly person. So what if she asks me if I had an arranged marriage? So there's a way that you would ask that question, right? I mean, you would get to know the person. You would have and then you would say, "Am I comfortable? Are you comfortable for me asking you some questions? Is it okay for me, Rohini, to ask you this question?" And often that is done from one way. And so what I always say is, well, if you're going to ask me that question, then I'm going to ask you a question. Are you okay with that? That gives empowerment and agency and autonomy to the person being asked the questions. And I think a lot of people who are asked questions don't do that. And because they see it as being difficult, being abrasive, being creating obstacles. No, actually, dialogue is a flow. It's a conversation. If Estelle wants to talk to me, I want to talk to her. I want to know about the glasses that she's wearing right now. I think they're great on her. I want to talk about that. I want to know about her family. I want to know about this and that. So if you get to ask me a question, I get to ask you a question. That's how I approach it. And I actually talk to, some younger students, like international students, who have shared with me some of their experiences. And I just say, like, if someone asks you a question, ask it right back. And that will give that person a reminder of boundaries and respect, and also remind them that whatever you can ask me, I can also ask you. And that changes the power dynamic.
Yeah, this is so great, and something we actually initially just started speaking about. It makes me think of, we were just saying, like, that's why I wanted you on the podcast. Like, let's say on social media, and that too, it's something I really, and cut me if like you think I'm wrong, but I really see so much parallel with like grief work and this, because I just related to, like you said, you mentioned, I love that, the audacity of when people like that word, because like I just did a whole entire podcast, like things that people say to you when you've just lost a child, or when, like, it's like, can you sit with that for just like a minute,
Yeah.
just 1 second? And just, I love that aspect. Like, so I've been really grappling with the the one-dimensional aspect of let's say social media, where there's a lot of us get like this, like the information now, let's face it, and just, I'm just craving the dialogue, and the realness. Like sometimes, like I go on social media, I'm like, but wait, like in my real life, this is not happening. And like, I'm craving that, like, this is why my podcast is called She Quest, because I need to ask questions. In the word quest, there's the word question. And so I was just taking 2 notes. Like, there's so much like gold that you said, like about how new, I'm gonna butcher it, but what you said about like a lot of the elders are like just exhausted. It's very new for them to be, because like now we're like suddenly like asking questions, but like they've been grappling with this like since they're born.
Yeah,
like,
forever. Yeah.
And
Yep.
just how new. And we were just saying about to not take a diagram at face value. It's like you can't, and that feels like grief for me, which is, I feel it's more what I know, in that we were like, you can't explain something on like a one post is like not enough to like grapple. And there's a work too, like I find with diversity and inclusivity and all that, it's like visceral, like you can't just understand it with your head.
No.
Do you get,
Yeah,
I'm going everywhere all at once.
I hear you, and I'm just trying to find a quote that I was looking at this morning on grief. If you can indulge me, let me read it to you.
Yes.
So it's by Glennon Doyle Melton, and I can send you the bit later. The text is called "Carry On, Warrior." Grief is not something to be fixed. It's something to be born, BORNE, together. And when the time is right, there is always something that is born from it. After real grief, we are reborn as people with wider and deeper vision and greater compassion for the pain of others. We know that. So through our friend's grief, we maintain in our hearts the hope that in the end, good will come of it. But we don't say that to our friend. We let our friend discover that on her own. Hope is a door each one must open for herself. That comes back to that choice bit that I was talking to you about earlier. And when somebody has the audacity to say to someone like yourself, how did that happen? How did you lose the child, et cetera, et cetera? they haven't gotten to that point yet where they've sat with it. You mentioned that earlier, right? They haven't sat down and let that grief be a point of propelling you towards what you're doing now. It's because of the grief and pain you've experienced and you continue to experience in every day in different ways, that you are where you are right now. And we know this, and we know that part of Tommy's purpose was to prepare you for here and now. Does it make sense? Does it hurt your heart? All of the above. Yes, it doesn't make sense, and yes, it hurts your heart. However, you are here, and there is an impact that you have based on that pain and grief. And I think that when elders and those carrying the years of oppression start to resist by actually telling stories, and that's why I think creative writing and storytelling is so empowering. I've always been a little secret poet in my head. I've always been interested in writing, never felt I was good enough. That's the general imposter syndrome. But on top of being someone that looks like myself and teaching in a Eurocentric language, etc., never good enough to write poetry. And I've realized how important poetry has been as part of my release of who I am and my decolonizing. I think about my late grandmothers who were lived under British colonial oppression. What would they be thinking right now if they saw their granddaughter talking to Estelle Thompson on SheQuest? What would they be thinking? They'd say, how did this happen? We couldn't even read and write. We were segregated by British colonial power. We were put into working camps. My mother's side of the family are Indigenous. They're a tribal group, a nomadic group. And so there was even more oppression because they were not part of the middle and upper class Hindu society. And we were non-Hindus. We had a lot of extra labels attached under oppression. And so for every success that I have, if it's making a good cup of coffee to writing a poem, every single success that I have in my life, I think about those two women who would be thinking, gosh darn it, we did okay. So that grief and sadness of the oppression under British oppression, I think about that every day when I approach a difficult day, a challenging day, a paper that I can't write, I'm procrastinating, the piles of laundry, or the nasty comment by the guy who served me coffee. Whatever it is that I'm being challenged with, again, I try to see it as a choice. And then there are days where I collapse and I'm tired and I'm exhausted, and please don't ask me any more EDI questions. Please don't ask me about diversity. Please don't ask me about equity, because I'm tired. And so that's okay, right? And that's okay because part of being a learner and part of being an educator is filling the bucket again, right? So I tell students, when you're writing your paper for me, there's going to be days where you will not know what to say to me. You're going to be so worried about your grade, and you're forgetting about the actual process and the journey. And that sounds cliche, but it's true. It's true. And so when I get tired of EDI, and when I get tired of being the only brown woman at the table, and when I get tired of being a token, I say to myself, and like Oprah Winfrey says, and some of your listeners may not know who Oprah is because it might be too young, but Oprah always says that when she was the only Black woman at a table of white men, she brought the ancestors with her. And you bring Tommy with you wherever you go. I bring my grandmothers with me. These are our links and our strengths. There are weaknesses too, because we want to do well for them, right? We want to make sure that they feel honored and that we honor them. And that's the continual struggle that we all face. Are we good enough in our space? Are we asking the right questions? Am I going to offend? Am I too brown in this space? Am I too loud? Am I too woman? We constantly are asking those questions. And some of it I internalize, and some of it I don't. And I use writing now to help me process what's going on.
I love that you mentioned writing. I just love the way you've been able to wrap it down. A nice little gift. I'm sure it's the public speaking you that comes out, and also you're a writer. So I think bringing a theme and linking it back just so eloquently, Rohini. I'm curious, was there a moment in you're like, I feel there's such fire when you speak about diversity and inclusivity. There's a passion, like a tigress,
Right,
and
right, right.
a roar like inside you. Was there a moment? I've been interviewing women for like 3 years now on the
Mm,
show, and I'm fascinated with like for me, there's like really, and it might not be like that, but like almost like crossovers, like you mentioned in your language, like rerouting, like um for me sometimes I use like almost like reestablishing like identity wise.
yes,
Like was there sometime maybe in your early
yes,
years, like even before like your education and all that,
yes.
where you're like, oh, like this is my calling, like this is my dharma, this is.
Great question. So I love music and writing, and I never had formal training in any of them in the sense like creative writing or music training. But my dad really loved music and would always play, eclectic things, everything from British rock to classical Indian to, Drake. I mean, the whole thing. He has the whole gamut, and he would always play everything for me. So I was really exposed to plurality from the beginning. I understood that I had a diversity within my own family because of my mom and dad being from different ethnic groups within India. Because we know there are 26 official languages and a plethora of tribal and ethnic groups. So plurality and diversity has always been there. But early on, I knew that I had my mom's brother was a major in the Indian Army. And when he moved to Canada, he found a job at driving a taxi. And he would have piles of books in his car. And he would just read and read and read and read. And I remember I was very quiet as a kid. I struggled with my body image. I was overweight. I've written a story about it. So I'll have to send that story to you at some point about being plus size. And I hated myself. So I was actually a very, very quiet kid. And that's very hard for my students to understand. Like I was super introverted. I was super shy. I didn't want to speak because I didn't want people to look at me because I hated my face. I hated my body. I hated everything about myself. And so my uncle I would be waiting outside Micmac Mall in Dartmouth, and he would be in the taxi stand, and he'd call me over and say, "Look, let me give you a lift. I'll give you a lift home." He had tons and tons of books, and I was just like so fascinated by all these books in his car. And he'd say to me, "You're a quiet kid. I know you've got things to say." And he was the first person who touched me on the shoulder to say, "I know you've got something to say about the world. I know you have, here, start reading." And I mean, I read, and I was a nerdy kid in general, but I didn't really read about the world, if that makes sense. I was almost like, I'm not important. And so me knowing things is not going to have an impact. I'm just an overweight brown kid who never will get a boyfriend, never will be accepted by white society. I don't even know. I'm supposed to be, maybe I'll be a doctor because I'm good at chemistry. I don't know. I mean, I had no self-esteem. And so because I had no self-love or self-esteem, I didn't think that I was worthy of any impact in the world. But when he nudged me and say, "Read this book about Gandhi, read this book about Buddhism. Do you know that the British government still owns the jewels of the Taj Mahal? They have not returned the jewels. The Koh-i-Noor, which is the greatest diamond, is still sitting on the British on the crown itself. Do you know they have not returned it? Do you know anything about oppression? Do you know anything about colonialism?" And I was like 12 or 13. And he just sparked an interest. And I realized that my identity, my physicality, my brownness, my woman was all actually a superpower and not an obstacle. But you tell yourself it's an obstacle. You tell yourself you're not good enough. You tell yourself you're never going to fit in. But really, it was very super powerful. I just didn't know that. And I went through school. I didn't get into medical school. My parents were actually elated for me because they knew that you don't have to be the stereotypical, they see South Asian doctor. You can go and do whatever you want. That's why we moved to this country. That's why we put you in a private school and got bursaries for you. That's why we did all that. So go and be free. And again, it was a choice, right? So I made that choice to do graduate work in French. And people would say to me, why are you doing French? That has something to do with your culture. And I'd say, well, why not? Why can't I do it? And so I was given obstacle upon obstacle upon obstacle. And that's when I knew, right, that actually those obstacles would have been put in my place, in my space, in my face, in my heart, in my center, because I need to move them out of the way for others. Maybe those obstacles were put in my path to make it a little bit easier for those behind me. If I can see that perhaps someone junior to me, someone younger than me, someone that looks like me, someone that's interested in the arts and humanities and doesn't think that they fit in because of how they identify, maybe because I took on a few of those obstacles, they won't have to take as many. You know, this is why I love Pride Month. We're in Pride Month right now. And I love Pride so much because what Pride means to me is about being yourself. It's just like a glorious time. And it, you know, as you know, it comes from the Stonewall incidents in the United States in the 60s. And it was led by Black activists. And I feel incredible like sense of joy and pride for being in Halifax and being able to see pride in many ways. And so I know in my heart that my uncle reminded me that I have potential, that I had fire, that I had a belly, that I had a brain. And those two things are all works in progress all the time. And little did I know that I was going to go off and actually do work that, you know, he chatted about with me in, you know, in our taxi rides together.
So glad I had that question. It was actually my first question I was supposed to ask you. But this really resonates with me, like, you know, and some, I feel this themes really comes back often, how, like, it just fascinates me how what once was an obstacle, now it's like the way, like, this is the way, like, your obstacles are the way, and they're not just the way for you, like, because you're walking it, you're like, because you're walking it, you're teaching others by it, you know, not just even with your words, just like with what you're doing. Yeah, you know, and people like your sons are looking at that's impacting them, your students are impacted by that, you know. It's incredible, the ripples when you know, and I would have never thought that too. I mean, well, yeah.
I don't think we always know that we have those effects, right? We don't always know we have effects on people. And that's what keeps us, you know, supposedly modest and humble. I don't believe in having humility or modesty, because I think that that's something that's a patriarchal oppression. I feel that women are asked to be modest and humble because that keeps male dominance up. And so, you know, I will say, people will say to me, oh, you are, you know, you've really changed as you get older. So yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to change. We're supposed to grow. I'm supposed to be better than I was yesterday. I mean, it's a competition with myself. I am not a type A person. I don't have perfection in my life. I have a work-life flow. I have obstacles in my way. I still step on pieces of Lego on my, you know, and it hurts my foot every time. But it's a reminder that I have kids, and then maybe that Lego might not be Lego in a few years, right? It might be other you know, issues at work, or it could be how I'm treated by parts of the population, or whatever it is. We're going to step on pieces of Lego every day. There's going to be a pinch of a reminder that you're alive. And being alive means facing pain and joy in the same breath. And for me, you know, that moment with my uncle, many moments with my uncle, but that particular moment where he really reminded me that I have a greater purpose. And, you know, we know that most of us are still working on finding that purpose, and some of us feel like we don't. And I have I have the privilege of working at a university. And so I have access to great minds. I have access to great books. I have access to a lot of information. And sometimes that forces us to think that we have to learn more. We have to keep going. We have to keep going. And I'm learning now that my needs also mean I need to rest and I need to contemplate. I need to take time to perhaps after this interview, sit for a little while with a cup of coffee and think about what I talked about with Estelle, and think about what that impact might be for the next listener, and think about how that might inform my teaching, and think about how that might make how I'll choose to engage in research. Every act and every moment that I have with another human being propels me forward in my purpose.
Oh, I want you in-house, Chic West in-house. I do want to ask you this because that's what we were supposed to talk about. But we wanted to talk about, diversity and inclusivity in relation to yoga. I think we're going to finish with that. Hopefully we're not opening another can of something, but if we are, that's okay. Like, where do you see, and I'm just like, it's a general, I guess, question, but like, where do you see the lack of diversity in the yoga class? And perhaps we can stick to like Nova Scotia, let's say, like Halifax. I mean, maybe like North America in general. And yeah, like, where do you see the lack of diversity? Where do you see exclusivity, like instead of inclusivity in yoga? Yeah.
It's a really good question. And I think that it has a lot to do with comfort levels. And so often what's done in fitness spaces, in exercise spaces, is that we want the majority to be comfortable. And the majority in Halifax are white. And so what happens is the space is made such that the white gaze walks in and feels like it's not too different or othered or Asian or yogic, but it's comfortable for me, Jennifer, Heather, Samantha, can come in and take a class and not feel overwhelmed by the otherness of the space. So there's a comfort level that's created that focuses and orbits around whiteness. When the yoga teachers often identify as white, that also informs how that practice is going to be, because you can't change who you are. You are who you are. You can be a better version of yourself every day, every hour, every practice, every position, because that's what yoga is. Yoga is a practice, and yoga is a learning to a sense of self with an outward impact, right? So as you go into Warrior One, you are using your inner strength to, really stretch all of your body and also release some of the energy out into the world in some form. And so when you're a yoga teacher that identifies as white, you are a learner and you are a student, and you have your experience that is valid and probably works well in that white space. I have never gone into a yoga class, maybe whether with yourself or with others, where I felt absolutely comfortable. And that has nothing to do with the yoga teacher. That has nothing to do with the space. That has nothing to do with the windows, or whether my baby at the time is paying attention or wants to be breastfed, or if the person beside me has slimmer legs than I do, or that person has a nice looking bra. No, it's about how I place myself in that space. And I have always been uncomfortable in yoga, partly because I feel an assumption that I should know more based on my ethnicity. I've always not liked my body, and so doing yoga has been stressful for me. And then on top of that, it's been under the white gaze. And so it culminates to be an uncomfortable place for me, which saddens me, but also propels me to think, why? And the why is because the yoga spaces that are created predominantly in Halifax are catered and created and marketed for the white dominant population. And the tropes of moments of yogic culture that are added to the yoga space are in marketing, in perhaps elements of images. And, are we hiring yoga teachers that are outside of the white population? I mean, I know I've been doing this app for a while where I I actually purposefully try to choose a Black instructor. And I feel relaxed. I feel actually completely different. And this is online. Like, I'm not even seeing this Black instructor. But when I see the Black instructor, I'm actually more relaxed. And why is that? That is my experience. And so when we're creating yoga spaces, we can't always create spaces that are going to help everybody and make everybody comfortable, because our mindset and those who are running the yoga studios have their own experience. And so clearly we need to have a yoga space that's run by a person of a non-white ethnicity. This is actually what we need. And that's an uncomfortable conversation, because yoga has been predominantly in North America on Turtle Island run by white people. And that's an uncomfortable conversation. Well, I've been doing it for 10 years and I have this much training and, I follow that's great. But it has been marketed for North America by North Americans for the North American population, which is predominantly white females. And Estelle, having been to India and having had training in India, most of the yoga teachers are men. Many of them are in dhotis or, loin cloths. Nobody is wearing, pretty sparkly leggings. It's a very different practice in India. I mean, I remember my dad telling me, oh, every morning we would have Ujjayi breathing. I'm like, why didn't you tell me you did Ujjayi breathing every morning? Oh, no, it's very normal for us. And then you do math. That's what they did. That's what they had. They did morning assembly. And then there was Ujjayi breathing in the classroom. And then you did math. That was not considered yoga. It was just normal part of the everyday assembly. And so the marketing of it is done under a white gaze, under the white marketing system, and it has to be decolonized. And I can say that I've been interested in watching, and I'm no expert, in terms of what is being done. But I know that in the United States, for example, there are more and more studios that are run by Americans of Indian descent who feel a strong need to create spaces where women of color, and particularly Indian women, come into that space and feel comfortable. And it's a challenging conversation to have, because I know many yoga instructors. I've been going to Shanti Yoga. I went to Bikram Yoga before it closed. I have only had white instructors. I have had mostly white women instructors. And I've always felt that it wasn't the space for me. And if I saw an Indian man or an Indian woman teaching yoga, I would go to that studio.
I know you say it's like an uncomfortable conversation, but whenever I have it, like, I think it's easier. Like, I crave more of it, and I'll say this: like, it's so much easier for me to talk about it now that I've been to India.
Yeah. Yes.
Like,
yeah.
so like 100%. Like, I wouldn't have, and like, even though I've read so many texts, even though it's like just so different. And it's like obviously a huge privilege that I got to do that. And like this really, I think you call it the sterilization of yoga, really.
Yeah.
I want to say tragic. I don't know if it's the right word, but like for me, it's always, I'm a visual artist. And for me, that's always been the tragedy and why I merged the two. And when I remember when I went to India and I was like, it smells of incense. And it was like the walls were full of deities and full of colors. And it was just so different than like everything blank and everything, sterile, like really that word, like sterile, that we get here. And that for me was so I mean, it was so just in your face. And like, really, I don't know. I'm not sure if you haven't been to India, like if you can truly,
Absolutely.
do you know what I mean? And like, I know it's a privilege that I did go there, like I did go there, but like, I'm really glad I did to see, and and
Yes.
appreciate that tradition and embrace, the tradition as a white female able-bodied.
I agree with you. I think traveling to India is most empowering. We talked about this before we started. It's empowering, and it takes years to digest. And I know that
Oh
one
yeah.
of my things that I want to do in my retirement, or maybe earlier, is I've always wanted to open up
Yeah.
a boutique in Halifax. My mother, when she moved to Nova Scotia after living in PEI in New Brunswick, she came to Nova Scotia. She opened up Maharani Boutique. Maharani means queen, and it was a little boutique in Penhorn Mall in Dartmouth in 1975. I was born in 76. And she opened it up, and it was like a eclectic jewelry shop with scarves and beautiful earrings, and she sold it to white women. I mean, that's what the population was. And she would import things from India, and then she couldn't keep up with it because she was a nurse full time and she had a baby as well. And so she closed it down. But that was been my dream, is to, we to really own a boutique owned by someone like myself, where I would celebrate all of those colors: art, jewelry, makeup, aesthetics, yoga, meditation, and really bring it and bring away from the sterility and insert the experience that I have had as somebody born here and having been to India a few times and having been part of the diaspora. So it would be not an Indian shop, because it's not. I'm not Indian. I'm born here. I'm Canadian. But it would have the flavors, the experiences, the passion, the colors and really the agency and choice to create a space where I would feel someone like myself would be comfortable. Whenever I give a gift to somebody will say, "Oh, I really like it." And I always say to them, it's something that I would want. I always gift people things that I would want. And I feel like that's what that shop would be. It would be like the things that I would want myself to have. I have these little dreams, and I live in North End Halifax. So I'm always like looking around. I'm like, oh, that place is on lease. Oh, I should get that, and I think about it all the time. And it's something that's in my heart of just giving people a taste of happiness and joy that I experienced when I went to India, and I experienced as a person that I am. So that's on my radar. And I would love to have a yoga instructor there who would be from India.
I love that you share all your dreams and visions, and the more that you share them, like I already see it. So I already see it. Rohini, there's just so much more I want to speak with you, but I think I'll end the conversation there.
Okay.
You're just your wisdom and knowledge, and I'll say, like, your generosity. This conversation felt really, really generous in all that you are, like not just what you know, but what you are, and you're just what you exude. And I just cannot wait for everyone to meet you. Everyone to meet you. I had so many other questions, but maybe I'll lure you back. We'll see if I can. Before we leave, just one last question: is there if you had like one book you can recommend? And we mentioned before, the work is obviously not just in books and such, but sometimes they do help. They are kind of pillars, for us, for the audience, whatever ethnicity we might be listening to this, and background and stories. That in terms of diversity, inclusivity, is there like a podcast or just a resource? Like, and I know I'm sure there's tons, but is there one that you can like direct us towards?
Oh, wow. I think that diversity, inclusivity, and equity come from reading things that you know nothing about. And so what I would say to somebody is, when they're searching for something new, look at the last few things that you've been reading or listening to, and you'll notice a pattern. Okay. You'll notice that you're reading and listening to things that are sort of the same. You say, no, 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 I'm always about change. I want to learn. I want to learn. But we don't actually, we stay in our comfort zone. And somebody gifted me American Gods by Neil Gaiman. It's like a science fiction, but classic science fiction book. You haven't read Neil Gaiman? Why haven't you read Neil Gaiman? I'm like, Neil Gaiman is like some dude from Britain who writes about science fiction. Like, I don't want to read that. I'm a, I read about Mauritian literature, or I read about, Barack Obama, or I read, I'm an activist. No, read American Gods by Neil Gaiman. Read it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to read science fiction. This is what I'm going to do. And one of my very, very favorite mentors from St. Mary's, who's now retired, Dr. Jim Morrison, he always used to say to me, you need to read something before you go to bed that has nothing to do with work, nothing to do with anything that you know. And it's a form of escapism, right? This is why we watch films. So this is why we watch, things that we don't have to use our brain. But actually, because we don't know anything about the subject matter, it forces us to think about inclusivity and diversity and equity because we're not familiar with it. And that's what really that's what xenophobia is, right? Xenophobia is the fear of the unknown. And so I was like totally, mocking my friend who's a professor of English at Memorial. And he was like, you need to read Gaiman. Like, I'm just really, this is very sad that you haven't read it. Anyways, I've read American Gods. I've read more of Gaiman books. They're totally outside of my norm. I mean, my kids were making fun of me. They're like, why are you reading this? And it's because it forced me to see the world differently. And that's what leads to change. So don't read anything. Like, look at what you read the last 5 books that you've read, look at the last 5 podcasts you've been listening to, and go somewhere different. I've been listening to the Blind Boy podcast. He's a guy from Limerick in Ireland. Kind of a character, but I've learned a lot of things. I have a very good friend, David Delaney, on which I've been doing some podcasts. Be Your Best You. That's a great podcast. A couple of friends have been sending me ones from the US. I mean, things that are outside of my normal realm. And then because we want comfort. It's like the macaroni and cheese or the tandoori chicken and rice for me. I mean, it's that comfort that what we always go back to. Go completely different. Go somewhere where you've never gone before. Go to the section of the bookstore that you'd never go to. That's what I would say and that's been the best advice that I've ever received.
What a great advice it is. I have one more question for you. I feel, and the last question has been changing over the years, but right now I'm going with we've talked a lot about, we've talked about identity, but I feel we've talked about self-expression as well. And I'm sure we could have talked more about creative writing or just ways to bring what's inside us out. And I think about the story, like your uncle's story, and all the little nudge we get. So I guess my last question for you is what do you wish more women knew about their own magic and their own what they bring out into the world?
That magic never dies. I think that we think that it goes away after a while. We think that the illusoire, that we think the illusion, the sense of not knowing, because we often as women need to know. We're planners, we're caretakers, we're nourishers, we're educators, and we need to know what's going to happen next. And the magic actually is in the unknown. And so that never really goes away. I think I remember very clearly being in Eastern Ontario during my sabbatical in 2019. I was really unhappy. I didn't want to live there. I was worried that we were going to move there. It was quite a tumultuous time in my personal life. And I remember thinking, is this it? Is this it? This is what I get. So I got the kids and I got a good job, but is that it for me? Is there not something else that I want? And I forgot that I had magic still. And I forgot that the fire in my belly was there the whole time. And so what happens is, if I could tell, younger versions of myself or other young women, is that there will be moments where it will be you feel like the magic's gone. All you're doing is getting up and paying bills. and going to bed and thinking about the next day, about how you're going to pay the next bill. But all around you is magic, and all around you are miracles, and all around you, all inside of you are moments of, wow, I'm alive. I actually just finished a podcast with Estelle, and I got to do that from the comfort of my home and in a safe and healthy space. I was able to self-express. And now I have the internet to go and check my social media and go on to my day and get paid for it. That's magical. It's magical that coffee is able to be brewed. It's magical that water comes out of a tap. It's magical that I produced 3 babies from my body that I hated and loathed. So I would say that the best advice that I would say to people is that the magic is never, ever gone. When you feel like the magic's gone, it's always there, and it's covered up. It needs to be, maybe refocused, reimagined. We change, and so sometimes we're worried as we age and we change and we grow, and our relationships also modulate along with us, that the magic is gone. And I really had an awakening when I realized that the magic was always there the entire time, and I still had an impact in the world. I still had an impact on myself, that I still mattered, and that despite things that were the parts of the world telling me that I wasn't good enough, there were other parts telling me that I was worthy of joy.
Such an important message, that the magic never dies. I'm all for that, as you know. It's been such a pleasure. Where can we find you, and how can we support you, Rohini?
Oh, sounds great. Well, I'm on Instagram. I am Rohini Bannerjee, PhD. So double N in the Bannerjee. I am on Twitter as well. And those are the 2 places that I probably am most active. And I'm on the St. Mary's University website. So if you ever have academic questions, or want to have a speaker come out and talk to you about the few things that I do. I'm also a big supporter of unions. I'm the president of the faculty union, so I'm very interested in workplace égalité as well, and how we perform at higher ed as well. And so I have my fingers in a few things, and I'm available to talk.
Incredible. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
Merci à toi. Merci Estelle.
This podcast was produced by Tosh Taylor of the Podcast Hub Productions. Find her online at podcasthub.ca.